Are you looking for some really good books that will interest your 5th to 8th graders in American history and world history? Here are some of my favorites. They cover roughly 1550 to 1850 or so, the early modern time period, just for that age group. Welcome to the Simply Charlotte Mason podcast. I'm Sonia Schaefer. I love talking books. And today I have a lineup of some great ones that I recommend wholeheartedly and that we include in our history curriculum, A Pageant of History, Early Modern. 5th to 8th grade students are beginning to do more of their schoolwork independently, and history is no exception. Oh, we still encourage you to keep your whole family together, studying the same time period. There are so many advantages to that approach. But at the same time, it's good to give your middle school students opportunities to grow in learning for themselves. With our curriculum, you get the best of both. A Pageant of History schedules wonderful living books for your family to read all together, and also age-specific titles for your students to enjoy individually. It's an effective combination. I'll leave a link in the description so you can explore the curriculum and the other books in the early modern study. Today I'm going to share with you the titles that we've selected for 5th through 8th graders, their individual reads. Don't worry about scheduling. The curriculum will tell you exactly what to read each day. In fact, there's a student narration guidebook available for your middle school student. It will give daily reading assignments and narration prompts for all the readings. The details are taken care of, so you and your student can sit back and enjoy these wonderful books. Along Came Galileo by Jean Bendick. This is a great biography, which, by the way, is an important genre of book to include in your students' history studies as they get older. When you read about one person's life, you also learn about the world in which he or she lived, and you have opportunities to make mental connections based on what you already know. In Along Came Galileo, the author includes sketches that add to the narrative, plus her personal comments keep things real. For example, when she relates Aristotle's model of the world, she adds a sketch of that scientist and his model, but she also tags on a little note to explain that nobody really knows what those ancient scientists looked like. At the end of each chapter is a statement by Galileo pertaining to the topic that was just read. I think you and your student will both enjoy this retelling of Galileo's life, his love for asking questions, and his quest for the answers. The Landing of the Pilgrims by James Darty. The Landing of the Pilgrims is an excellent narrative of young William Bradford and his friends who sailed to America to start a new life with religious freedom. The book is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 relives the background story of why the separatists left England and their time in Holland and their decision to sail to the New World. Part 2 unfolds the voyage and their search for a suitable place to settle, and their meeting Samoset and Chief Massasoit. And then Part 3 begins with the Mayflower's return to England and ends 20 years later. That's a section that's often left out of the story of the Pilgrims. It's an outstanding living book and a title in the Landmark series. Only a few select titles from that classic series are still in print, and this is one of those gems. Renewal, The Church That Expands Outward by Luke H. Davis. In addition to American history and world history, we like to give your middle school students books about church history. Renewal, The Church That Expands Outward, is one in a series of 5 books by Luke Davis. Your student will read all 5 if you're following a Pageant of History curriculum. This one picks up at the end of the Reformation and gives your student short living snapshots of key moments in the lives of men and women who helped expand the church. Your student will read how William Wilberforce and Sojourner Truth stood against injustice, how John Bunyan and David Brainerd shared the goodness of Christ, how Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, and Charles Spurgeon preached the gospel with clarity and passion, and how God stirred the hearts of missionaries such as Hudson Taylor and Dwight Moody, and more. Sketches, timelines, and maps are included. Next, we have The Ocean of Truth, the story of Sir Isaac Newton by Joyce McPherson. This is a biography also. In fact, Joyce McPherson has written several great biographies about prominent people in history. In The Ocean of Truth, she used Isaac Newton's original writings, along with his contemporaries' writings, to supply the anecdotes and many of the conversations. It's an interesting and accessible living book. The Sign of the Beaver by Elizabeth George Spear. This Newbery Honor book is a historical fiction that highlights a 13-year-old boy's growing relationship with a nearby Native American Indian clan, the Beaver clan. When Matt's father leaves him alone to guard their newly built cabin in the wilderness, he must discover how to survive in the forest. Atian, a young boy in the Beaver clan, helps him learn those necessary skills. Throughout the story, Matt gets to know his new friend's heritage and way of life, as well as the clan's growing problems adapting to the new settlers and the changing frontier. It's a wonderful story of responsibility, survival, and personal growth. Amos Fortune, Free Man by Elizabeth Yates is another Newbery Medal winner and a powerful story. It traces the life of Amos from his capture in Africa in 1725 to his horrific trip across the ocean to his life as a slave in New England. After more than 20 years as a slave, he's able to arrange for and buy his freedom. The narrative follows his establishing a trade and building a homestead, and finally being able to purchase freedom for the woman he wants to marry, as well as for some needy children in his town. Your student will learn much about the evils of slavery, and yet how a strong character and kind heart was able to rise above hard circumstances and overcome evil with good. It's a true story and a powerful book. Next, we have A Young Patriot, the American Revolution as experienced by one boy. This one's written by Jim Murphy. Now, if you're searching for a fabulous living book on the Revolutionary War, take a good look at this one. Jim Murphy is one of my favorite authors on American history. His books are meticulously researched, but they don't get bogged down in those details because he writes in such a wonderfully living way. Rather than give an impersonal, broad overview of the war, A Young Patriot is about a 15-year-old Connecticut farm boy who enlists in the Continental Army in 1776. Your student will experience Army life on a personal level, with its daily misery, boredom, confusion, terror, and an occasional triumph. Authentic time period illustrations are included, as well as a brief chronology of the American Revolution in the back of the book. Carry On, Mr. Bowditch by Jean Lee Latham, another Newbery Medal winner. This book is written like historical fiction, but it chronicles the life of a real man, Nathaniel Bowditch, and his valuable contribution to navigation. I remember when I was visiting my nephew, who's in the Navy, and somehow we got onto the topic of navigating the ships at sea, and he mentioned the Sailor's Bible, which is what they call the book that Nathaniel Bowditch wrote. The official title is The American Practical Navigator. Well, I immediately recommended that my nephew read Carry On, Mr. Bowditch if he wanted to know the story behind that Sailor's Bible that is still used today. The story is very readable and follows Mr. Bowditch from his modest beginnings to his first sea voyage to his eventual mastery of navigation and publishing of his work. And best of all, Nathaniel Bowditch was self-educated. It's a great book filled with great ideas for your student. And as with any good biography, you learn much about the time period as you follow this person's life events. Diary of an Early American Boy by Eric Sloane. In an ancient house in the eastern United States, author Eric Sloane found a small, wood-backed, leather-bound diary. It was the diary of a 15-year-old boy, Noah Blake, and it documented a year in his life, 1805. The author has used that diary and seamlessly woven in his commentary on early American life to create a vivid picture of the work and tools and plans and ingenuity that were demonstrated by those early settlers. If you have a son or daughter who loves to study how things work, the exquisitely detailed pen and ink drawings will be fascinating. But the narrative will be interesting to all, regardless. It's a fabulous living depiction of how life changed for that family over the years, even while focusing on just 1 year in the life of an early American boy. The Year of the Horseless Carriage by Genevieve Foster. Genevieve Foster books are unique and so well written. They do a fantastic job of giving the reader a 360-degree perspective, looking at what was happening all around the world during the same time period. Though this particular title sounds like this book chronicles only 1 year, it does much more than that. Here's the author's introduction. In 1801, when this book begins, Napoleon Bonaparte was not only the ruler of France, he was also planning to conquer and rule over England as well as the entire continent of Europe. In America, he owned all the land from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. What he planned to do with it was of great concern to Thomas Jefferson, the new President of the United States. In fact, in 1801, Napoleon was causing such a stir in both Europe and America that the invention of the horseless carriage, the most significant event of the year, passed by almost unnoticed. It was not until Napoleon had been defeated by the kings and emperors of Europe and was a prisoner on the island of St. Helena that the first public railroad was started in England and the locomotive began to take the place of the horse. This is the story of those eventful 20 years, from 1801 to 1821. And through this masterful storytelling, your student will form connections between Richard Trevithick, Thomas Jefferson, Beethoven, Robert Fulton, Lewis and Clark, and James Madison, and more. It's a great book that will set the wheels in motion for transitioning into modern times. Last, we have Seesaw Girl by Linda Sue Park. This is a story from 17th century Korea. Now, in that culture and time, a girl of a good family was expected to stay home until she was married. She was to spend her days mainly learning how to sew, embroider, do the laundry, and manage the kitchen. But during the early modern era, things were beginning to change, and your student will experience those gradual shifts through the eyes of Jade Blossom, a girl who accepted her destiny but was curious about life outside the walls of her home. As you can see, there are many wonderful books to help make the early modern time period come alive in your middle school students' imagination. If you would like to learn more about these titles or about a Pageant of History early modern curriculum that provides the reading schedules for all of the grades, as well as interesting historical pictures and maps, check the description for links. Next time, I will share our picks for high school students. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.